A Magic player might have lost $50,000 this weekend due to possibly the worst judge call ever made. Here's the story. Julian Disqualified, apologies if I didn't pronounce that quite right, was playing in the Gen Con Sunday Secret Lair Legacy Championship. This was the 32-person final tournament for people who won the qualifier tournaments over the rest of the week. First place of the championship would win a Dark Ritual Secret Lair promo card, of which only 4 exist. The event is single elimination, 5 rounds. According to Julian, after winning the first 3 rounds, a friend of his, who is not playing in the tournament, asked if he's interested in selling tournament equity at this point. For those not familiar with what tournament equity is, imagine this. Let's say I'm going to play in this huge Magic tournament that costs $1,000 to enter. A friend of mine offers to give me $200 to cover my entrance fee in return for getting 20% of my prizes. This would be known as selling 20% of my tournament equity. It's pretty common in other things like high-stakes poker tournaments. Sometimes this is done between people who are playing in the same tournament, and sometimes it's done between people who are not playing at all. But let's get back to the story. So Julian's friend asked him about possibly selling equity at this point, as Julian's in the top 4. Julian states that he didn't really understand what his friend was asking. At this point, a judge who overheard the exchange steps in and asks what's going on. Again, according to Julian, he explains what his friend said, and the judge hears this and leaves. As Julian is waiting for the semifinals to start, a judge finds him and tells him that he is getting a match loss for colluding or bribery, which is effectively a disqualification from the tournament at this point. Julian appeals to the head judge, who, in his words, quote, immediately shuts me down and tells me that there is nothing that can be done. I do have to note here that from my reading of Julian's account, it is not clear if he explicitly told the judges he didn't make any deals. After the tournament is over, the winner sells the first place card to a buyer on site for $48,000. There's a bunch of stuff to consider here, but let me at least try to start with the legal stuff. Wizards of the Coast and judges have to be very, very careful of anything that could be considered gambling during a tournament. No bets, no collusion, no outside wagers, no bribes to concede, none of that stuff. Wizards wants to stay very clear of federal and state gambling laws. So if this had been clearly a case of gambling on the outcome, well, that would have been the right call for sure. But there's some big problems here with the story. Number 1, there was no actual, according to Julian, equity deal. If the judge had overheard a deal and it had been clearly accepted, that might be one thing. But in this case, according to Julian, there was no deal, only an overheard offer. Look, if I ask you to rob a bank with me and you say no, and then the cops arrest you for robbery, I mean, you should be shouting for a lawyer and claiming false arrest as loud as you possibly could. Point number 2. The person who made the offer isn't even in the tournament. This deal wasn't anything that would have had an effect on the outcome of any of the games played, and that's where usually the bribery and collusion stuff are important. I mean, it's not even legally considered gambling. Number 3, Magic tournament rules are unclear in the area of equity splitting like this. It happens a lot, and this isn't the first time. In a tournament like this, where the top prize is huge and only goes to one player, and the next level of prizes for the other people are laughably lower, this sort of thing happens very often, and recently did in the past with another card like this in a tournament. But if you were in a $50,000 tournament in the finals and you knew second place got a much smaller prize, I mean, you might be interested in some sort of split as well. I would be. I do want to note that it's tournament legal for players to ask the tournament organizer to change the prize structure. This is confusing, but for instance, if you and I were in the finals and the first place person got $1,000 and second place got $200, we could legally together ask the tournament organizer to change the payout so that the first and second place finishers both get $600. I mean, it's a weird workaround for the same thing, but if I said to you, hey, concede to me in the finals, and I'll give you $400 as a split, well, that is collusion and can get you disqualified. Everyone following this story is waiting for some official explanation, which we may not get. But right now, we only have Julian's side of the story with some corroboration from people that were there as well. But if we take what Julian said as fact, this might be one of the worst, most expensive rulings in Magic's history. It's a call with little evidence on an issue that might not even be a tournament violation. We need an official statement on this from Wizards ASAP. Magic is in a state where the community trusts judges less and less every day, which isn't good. And this right now is just one more example that confirms the worst for people. I hope we'll hear something official about this, but silence will equate to guilt for a lot of people on this one. So that's the story. Let me know in the comments if you've heard anything new or any updates about this, because I want to get the story straight, but wow, it's a big one.